Day 323, and we're wrapping up the book of 1 Corinthians today. For today, I'm just going to talk about our passage. The boys are at my parents', which is really nice. Tomorrow is Resurrection Sunday or Easter Sunday, and I just thought that was really neat. In our reading for today, as we're looking at 15 and 16 of 1 Corinthians, chapter 15 is really has kind of the meat of today's reading. And it all centers around the resurrection of Jesus Christ. And Paul's writing to them and telling them about the importance of the resurrection, that if we don't have the resurrection, then our faith means nothing. We might as well eat, drink, be merry, for tomorrow we die. And everything is wrapped up in the resurrection in terms of validating the truth of who Jesus is, of what he did, who he said about himself, and what it means for our eternal security, and knowing that we're going to be with God in heaven someday. It's all wrapped up in the resurrection. I had this question came to mind, and this is probably the wrong question to ask, but I can't think of how to articulate it any other way other than this question. But which is more important, Jesus' resurrection or Jesus' birth? If Jesus isn't born, there is no resurrection. But you could have Jesus being born, but if he's not resurrected, then our faith totally falls apart. So which one has more impact? Once again, it's probably the wrong question to ask. It's just something that kind of came to mind as I was reading today's reading. If you're ever wanting to learn about as much as we can know from God's Word on this side of eternity about what life will look like after we die, and in particular after Jesus comes back and rules and reigns, this is the chapter you want to dive into. Chapter 15 of 1 Corinthians. It details certain things. It talks about how we are going to have these different types of bodies that are like a heavenly form. It's not an earthly form like we're in now. And it's interesting, if you do studies for Christians, that this idea of the resurrection is one of the things that Christians, even though we believe the Bible, this is one of the harder things to grasp. And I think the reason it is because we haven't been there yet. The other things we see in God's Word we've kind of experienced in one way or another. And the resurrection, when we die and we go into eternity with God, we're not quite sure exactly what that's going to look like. And so the mystery of it can be at times a little daunting. But also, it is the thing that we hang our hope on, that is the thing that we're looking forward to. That is the goal, is to be in eternity with God. And as I was reading today, I was just so encouraged by how the resurrection displays authority over the most powerful power other than God. So it's not, the most powerful power. God is the most powerful power. But the next thing in line would kind of be death, and how the resurrection, in and of itself, and what Jesus did, it completely disarms death, and it makes death this thing that is not as painful as it normally would be for those who do not have hope in a resurrection. And, we see that at the very end. He says, "Oh, death, where is your sting? Oh, Hades, where is your victory?" And I just love that idea that the resurrection for us, it disarms death. It does not death is non-existent in our life in the spiritual sense. We will have a physical death, but we will not die. And it's just such a beautiful reality, something just to celebrate today about the resurrection. And the whole reason why Paul is writing a lot about this is because they and other churches, we actually read, we read the letter to the church of Thessalonica, and how they kind of struggled a little bit too with what do we believe about the resurrection. So that's why he's writing this to the church at Corinth, because they had asked him, they questioned Paul, hey, we thought that when people die, they'll be resurrected. Excuse me. That hasn't happened. What's kind of going on here? And so he's using this to explain to them. And it's a very long chapter. There's a lot of details in it. But I think the resurrection today is just meant to give us that hope. And personally, I just think it's kind of cool, coincident. No, it's not coincidence. It's just neat that this is the passage that we're reading today, And tomorrow is the day that we set aside each year to celebrate Jesus' resurrection. And it just shows how important his resurrection is. And for us to have the confidence and the hope that we too will be resurrected in the same way that he was. And we look forward to that day.